Welcome back to the Dream Plan Start Grow show. My name is Allison Turner. So I started these interviews because I really love entrepreneurship and I truly believe that we can learn from each other. So if you're new in business or you're thinking about starting a business, or even if you've been in business for a really long time, check out the show at my YouTube channel, Dream Plan Start Grow. Today I am honored to have with me Zena Krogedal, who is a speaker coach, author, marketer, real estate investor, and a licensed real estate agent out in Arizona. She's also the creator of the American Dream Makers podcast, which I've been honored to be on as well. So welcome, Zena. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Allison, for having me. I really appreciate it.
So I know you have some new things coming out as far as business, but I know obviously you've been in real estate for a while. So how long have you been in real estate and kind of what prompted you to kind of get into? Because I find that realtors, even if you're a realtor and not a real estate investor, that's still obviously an entrepreneurial journey because you have to, if you want to eat, you have to sell some houses. So
Yes. So I joined my husband about almost 6 years ago to be a licensed real estate agent. Prior to that, and even still kind of tapering out, as I was a registered dental hygienist. So was working in the dental field for quite some time, and then he was in real estate, oh gosh, probably for a good 11 years now. And so he got to a point where he got busier and needed my help, and so I was helping him and assisting him on some things, and he was getting pretty busy. He said, I think it's time for you to get licensed so that we don't get in trouble with anything because I need you a lot more now. So I went ahead and got my license, which, by the way, was no easy feat. Real estate school was definitely challenging, especially not being in school for quite some time and not test taking for some time. So uh, anyway, it was a great decision because I ended up really enjoying not only working with my husband, which was a big surprise, but I also really enjoyed the entrepreneurship, like you said, of going out there and making friends and networking and just learning the skills of sales. Although I had a good sales background even before going into dental hygiene, and even being a dental hygienist, you have to inform and basically sell your patients of the services that your office provides. And so, but it definitely took it to a whole new level, definitely opened up my eyes to a whole new thing. And as we were really becoming successful and doing very well, it dawned on us, maybe we need to expand our horizons and start taking business conferences and not just taking real estate courses, but really going beyond. And so, which is how I ended up meeting you, Allison, at the Rock Your Life conferences. And so it's been a great endeavor because it's totally expanded our mindset, because both of us grew up in homes where our parents were not entrepreneurs. They didn't have the mindset of it, and so they went to work, clocked in and clocked out, and worked for retirement, and that's kind of what the path we were on. And we just realized, that gosh, there's so much more that we could be doing, so much more to impact, and why not take that risk of being entrepreneurs and really going for it?
right. No, I think that's so true. And I mean, I know a lot of real estate agents because down here they seem to be just expanding every day.
Yeah.
I meet someone like, I'm a new real estate agent. I'm like, okay, good luck. But I mean, I think, just from that side of things, the real estate side, it's a challenge. Especially here, I can't speak for Arizona, but there just seems to be more and more people that enter the field thinking it's going to be an easy thing. But there's so many real estate agents, and you're obviously going after the same listings, to actually list a house, or else you're trying to get, the buyer to find the perfect property to buy the house, because that's the only way you're going to get commission. And it's interesting how, the ones that seem to be, or I see as successful, how they've differentiated themselves. And I think just like in any business that you have to differentiate and kind of brand yourself to some degree, real estate agents really have to do that. And so obviously your husband was in it a little bit before you. it sounds like, but how have you guys, like as a team, branded yourself? Because I know a husband-wife team here and how they've branded here, and they do really well with the area they really focus on.
So, and that I love that you asked that question because that's definitely been part of the journey is figuring out how to brand yourself because you are correct. It is a highly competitive market. And I think everybody that we have met, they probably know a good 7 or 8 realtors. They're either family members, friends, or neighbors, or just somebody that they know at church or some sort of group they belong to. And so, yes, it's very competitive. So how do you stand out, in the marketplace? And for us, we just had to really find who we were authentically first. And we started kind of really playing on that we're the real estate warriors, Zena and Chris, the real estate warriors.
Love it.
Yes.
That's great.
And our story too. I mean, my story of being a immigrant, a Vietnamese refugee. My parents come into the United States when I was just a year old, and being able to achieve the American dream. And so that has always been, on my heart and mind, is that I believe that the American dream belongs to all of us. And not only can you achieve it, but you can actually go beyond. And so part of the American dream is home ownership. Yeah. And so helping people get into housing and owning their home, whether it be a first-time buyer or it be somebody who is upsizing or somebody who has a change in life and they want to downsize. It's all really great to be part of that journey. And then the other thing that we were able to come across and be blessed as, I think sometimes as we go along and we're walking our paths and we think we've got a plan, but God kind of comes in and says, nope, I've got a little something else for you.
Right.
And, yeah, and so we were blessed in that we were approached by a commercial real estate broker who was very renowned in our area. And she was a powerhouse. And she offered us an opportunity to come along her brokerage and not only take care of her residential clients, but she was showing us commercial sales and leasing as well. And so Chris and I, we looked at each other and we said, well, what do we do? What do you think? And we're just like, this is an opportunity that doesn't happen every day because getting into commercial real estate is not easy. It's a whole different beast. And so we said, well, what do we have to lose? If it doesn't work out, we go back to doing what we're doing. Or if it does work out, we learn new skills and we, really go beyond. And so we've had the privilege of being able to also do commercial deals. And we've taken care of our residential clients as well. But as we kind of move forward, that is the question of, which direction do we want to really, really focus in on more and more. Right now, the market's crazy and it's very, it's like a roller coaster ride. Ups and downs, twists and turns, But
Yep.
But it's all been great. And like I said, it's just definitely learning new things and meeting new people. And it's just been a fantastic ride.
Great. And how has it been working for your husband? Because I know you mentioned you didn't think you would like it as much. And I work with my partner in crime as well, Jack. And, it's interesting because I've worked one other time with someone that I was close to and it did not work well. And so I kind of learned from that experience to some degree. And I've chosen one way in this one. But how, with you and your husband and you coming into the business, how has that worked out for you?
Well, it definitely has grown us as a couple, for sure. I mean, marriage in itself is a whole, growth pattern anyway. I mean, because you've got two people coming together with different ideas, different perspectives, different backgrounds, and wanting to unify our dreams and work in the same direction. Because you do have to have the same direction, And so when you actually own a business together and you're actually working side by side that way, there's a lot of things that we've had to learn along the way. And one is certainly top is communication, for sure, is that we have to really almost over communicate, to make sure that we understand what's all happening, what's going on. And especially when we are working with clients, we have to make sure, if we're passing the baton back and forth, that we are very clear as to, what's all happening there so that our clients are taken care of. The other thing is we certainly have to define our roles better, understand who's going to do what and when, because in the beginning, the roles were a little wonky. So we were stepping on each other's toes, and I thought that was your job. I thought that was your job. And, and so you can imagine some of the discussions
right.
were frustrating. And so we've had to learn to define the roles. Okay, this is what you're going to do. This is what I'm going to do. In this transaction, this is your role and this is my role. And we've really tried to keep to those boundaries as well as possible. And then the other thing is, really learning to set time for separating your personal life and your business life, because it gets blurred very fast. Because suddenly you're going out on your date nights and you're
run into a client.
You run into a client, you're talking business, and it's like, wait, this is supposed to be our date night. Do people on dates really talk about, what went on during the day, business, to the details that we have? And it's like, no. So let's put the phones down. Let's look at each other and let's really just focus on how are you today, and really check in with each other. So where do you, what are your hopes and dreams? Because, it's always evolving. What my hopes and dreams were 19 years ago when we got married, they're very different today. And so if we don't check in with each other as to what our goals are and what we hope and dream for, it can get, again, a little wonky because, I thought we were going for this, but now we're going for this. And so I think you just have to have, a lot more shared vision meetings. Jimmy Evans and Karen Evans of Marriage Today, they always emphasize about going on yearly retreats with each other and having a vision retreat where you just focus on your vision as a married couple and where you see each other, in the next year, and then how are you going to accomplish it. And I think it's just fantastic to have that as a couple, to make sure you sit down and really map it out. So those were definitely, some things we had to work through. And like I said, just finding time for being a couple so that we're not just business partners or we're not just roommates, because we are married and we're connected, physically, emotionally, mentally, all of it. So,
yeah. And I think that, you said a couple of good things there that especially in business, and I'll talk about that first, like the vision for the business and making sure you're kind of in the same path, because if you're creating a roadmap together, Jack and I both owned a company prior to coming together. So he actually folded in under my company. So I'm technically still the business owner, so it's one of those things. And he realizes that he was never good, like administratively. And he would say that if he was on here. So he kind of lets me deal with all that type of thing and, step back away from it a little bit more. But then, it's still making sure that we're on the same path and where we want to go. And, even though I'm the owner of the company, like really checking in with him still, because he still kind of gave up his own company to come under mine. So I was still checking in with him. And then the other thing is, as a couple, because I get that of, when you have the date nights or whatever, it does go to business because it's such a big part of your life. And invariably, if we go out around here, we run into people we know. And of course, that comes up naturally anyway, topic-wise and everything. But, even if you're talking about your hopes and dreams as a couple, a lot of times those may come back into the business anyway, because if you want to buy a second house or you want to go on a vacation, obviously you can go down the path of vacation, but okay, like how are we going to put money aside for the vacation? So do we need to make more money in the business to get to the like all those things obviously intertwine as well. So I think it is hard to separate out completely.
Yes. I think so, because like you said, because when you are running a business together and you have a personal life together, they do intermix more often than not. But I think it is important though to make sure you have the time where it is just you and him personal. Because that's where, because it's easy to be one, all in with business 100% of the time. I think that's the easy part because we're just geared, it's just there. But I think the
Right.
challenge is to make sure that you have just you and him, and that you are not the business. And how are we going to connect today emotionally? How do we, go back to that time of when we first fell in love and had, butterflies in our stomach? Because once you lose that and you start to lose the connection, and we've seen this a lot in a lot of entrepreneurial couples, is that once they stop having those personal connection time, then now they just become business partners, and it's not as exciting. Now they say they're no longer in love; they're just kind of together because they need to be, and that's not a place of joy and peace, right?
No.
There's tension when that happens, when you're a business partner, but yet you're not just business partners. So it takes work, but it's been, like I said, surprisingly, my husband and I really do enjoy working with each other. Not to say that we haven't had our challenges and ups and downs, but we've learned and we're committed to, working through that and acquiring tools and that sort of thing. And so, I just think that that's just key, is that you both have to just be willing to work towards a great relationship.
Yeah. No, absolutely. 100% agree with that. And you mentioned a minute ago when you were talking a little bit about your own background, how you were an immigrant and you really believed in the American dream, and then obviously also that it doesn't just include, the American dream was like own a home, get make enough money, things like that, but really going beyond that even to, the next place. Maybe that's owning a vacation home, maybe that's, retiring early, whatever it is for you or you and your husband. But what have you done to really go that direction? Because I know real estate in general, if you're really good at what you do, can be a very lucrative field depending on, who your clientele are and things like that. But what have you, because obviously you just said you stepped into the commercial market, and I know you have some other things kind of brewing right now as well. So what are you doing to kind of exceed that?
So what we're doing to exceed that is, first, we've had to expand our mindset. We've realized that we had a lot of limiting beliefs, like I was saying a little earlier, that we had things with our parents, and not their fault. They just, they taught us what they knew. And my parents were immigrants, and they were just doing what, they were encouraged to do and moving forward and trying to acclimate to a new culture and new way of life. And but along that, they would tell me that, we're Vietnamese immigrants, and so you're not going to have the things American kids have. Their parents have been able to work and save and have a retirement and give inheritance, but we're just starting over. So we're barely making it, so that's not for you. And it's interesting that that's the kind of stuff that would stick in my mind. That's for other people, that's not for me. And something I learned, in the last several years, and to be honest, is that we would get really successful, but then I would almost self-sabotage our successes, and that I only allowed us to get successful to a certain level because in my subconscious mind, I didn't think we were supposed to go beyond anything. And I didn't realize that until, honestly, in this last year, my mother passed away a year ago in early June. And that was kind of the catalyst that really opened up my eyes and my desire to want to go and find out and do more. I didn't want to live a life in fear because she lived her life, based on a lot of fears. And so she didn't do a lot of things because she was fearful. And the reason why she would say those things to me is because it was based on, fear. And granted, for all the things that my mother had been through, I mean, she had a lot of trauma even before leaving Vietnam. And then leaving Vietnam, I just can't even imagine being a young mom with a baby, come into a country that you don't even know the language, and you don't even know if you're going to ever see your family ever again. and now you have to start over with a bunch of people that you can't hardly understand, and yet you're trying to acclimate. So I can't even imagine how that must have felt. So, therapy probably wasn't there to discuss all the things that were going on, right? And even if you found a therapist, would they really understand the cultural background to understand what she was really going through, So, so anyway, when she passed away, it just made me, now I've always known that life is short, but when your parent passes away, you're like, wow, life is really short for me, because now I'm the next matriarch. When I look at that, like, oh no, here I am, and so what does that mean? And what legacy do I really want to leave for my children? And I don't want to live my life in fear anymore. And so with that, I told my husband, I said, I really feel like we need to expand our horizons. Let's network outside of Prescott, Arizona. We've done a great job meeting all the people here, but let's go beyond Prescott, Arizona, and see what else is out there. And especially if we're looking at doing more investments in commercial deals, we got to meet people who actually, have the money and the resources to do so. And along that adventure, our minds were just expanded to like, wow, there's a whole new world out here, and we've met so many wonderful people, just like you, Allison, that are just innovators. They're creative, risk takers, and that is something that really draws me to that American dream and going beyond, is that if you are willing to risk it all, because you know that this is the purpose that you have in life, that this is the assignment that God has given you, that this is how you're going to impact the world. It inspires me to watch entrepreneurial minds work. Like it's a whole, like I said, it's a whole different world, because I did not grow up around it, didn't really know millionaires or billionaires, and now I know millionaires and billionaires, and they're great people who are risk takers, who are willing, because they believe so much in their purpose, they're willing to lay it all down and take that risk of losing it all. And so many times they've lost it all. Run across so many people who said, I lost millions of dollars. I'm thinking, gosh, I don't even have millions to lose, but wow. And yet they come back, and then they come back even stronger. So then I'm thinking, well, I want to learn the skill here. I want to learn that bravery. I want to learn that courage, because that is what the American dream is all about, is courage, right? Our founding fathers came here because of a vision, courage, and bravery. Can't even imagine what that must have felt like either, when you're going up sailing away and you don't know if the world is really round or not.
Right.
Where are you going to end up?
I couldn't imagine sailing over like 14 days or I don't even know how long it took to get across the ocean. I know it's less now than it was, but and like you said, not knowing what was on the other side. Yeah,
and imagine if they didn't do it, where we would be today, right? And so that is the American dream right there. Our founding fathers took that leap of faith, went on there, risking their lives, but knowing that there was a deeper purpose and that they needed to go find something else. And they made history, and here we are, able to live in such freedom. That's the short version. Obviously, there's a lot more to that.
The original entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Let's go and create an entire society over here.
Yeah. And it's so inspiring. You hear that, you read that in the history books, and it's just like, wow. I don't want to live in fear, because who knows what's on the other side, and who knows what kind of a difference and legacy that we can leave for the next generations to come.
Right. I think it is, it's all about, and I think I shouldn't say all, but many entrepreneurs think this way. It's really about how you can leave that legacy or make that impact, so even if you don't, like, I don't have my own kids, I have a stepdaughter, but it's still like, how can I make that impact on the world and leave it a better place than when I came? Right.
Yeah. Definitely makes it easier to wake up and jump out of bed, doesn't it?
Right.
Even when you know it might be a hard day at the office.
Yeah. So you guys do have kids?
we have kids, but they're grown, so they are
Okay.
young adults. Our daughter is 24 and married, and our son is
Nice.
23. So they are full-fledged young adults, and this is whole new territory for us too. So the last few years of adjusting to having adult children and knowing the boundaries of what that looks like, boy, that's taught us a lot too.
But have they always been supportive throughout? I mean, obviously, I know you've only been with your husband in the real estate side for about 5 years, but have they always been supportive of kind of that journey and bettering, and have they taken on any of those traits themselves?
So that is I really like that you asked that, because there was a moment there, and this was probably a few years ago. Um, because we are always, I feel like always, I say always, but most evenings we're still on our computers, we're watching TV, answering emails,
Yep.
all the doing business stuff. And our both the kids came into a room. It was almost like they were doing an intervention. And they said, "Mom, Dad, we're really concerned about you. We think you're working too much." And I looked at them, I said, "What do you mean?" "Well, you guys are always working. Like, you don't even take a break, and you're always doing things. Like, you just don't have time to just breathe. And, we just feel like you're just working too much. And you need to take it a step back." And my daughter at the time was engaged, and we were planning a wedding. I said, "Well, you know what? I really appreciate that you care. I really appreciate that you, are coming to us." I said, "However, we do work a job that, we only get paid when transactions are closed, and and sometimes the only time to answer emails is in the evenings, because during the day we're out with clients or doing the other things." And so and I said, "So this is kind of part of what it is to run a business, is that it goes beyond the 40 hours a week." And so here was something that was really interesting. Our son-in-law, after he had been married for about a year to my daughter, he works a sales job. So he's a salesman for a commercial lighting company down in the valley, down in Scottsdale. And asked him how work was going, and he said, "It's going pretty well." He goes, I have to tell you, though, that I had to really work through some things to kind of go beyond what I thought I should do." He goes, "Because, my generation, it's hard for us to really comprehend working 40 hours a week, let alone go beyond 40 hours a week." But yeah, I thought that was interesting that he said that. He goes, "Yeah, but that gives us some insight, doesn't it?"
That's what she is. That Gen Z? What is that?
Gen,
Or is he X or whatever the one before Z is?
it might be Gen Z. I don't know exactly. I forget the letters, but
Because I know my
it's
stepdaughter
obviously
is
much
Gen
younger.
Z, so
Yeah, they're
she's
they're in their
18.
20s, so yeah, they're in their 20s. So he said, "But I watch you and Chris, and I watch how hard you guys work, and I realize that I have to work beyond 40 hours a week, and that I have to answer the emails sometimes, even if it's after hours." And he goes, "And it's worth it because I'm taking care of my clients." And he goes, yes, I'm doing really well, and I'm glad to see that your example. And I thought, well, that's very sweet that here they went from being concerned to now understanding what it is like to really have that entrepreneurial mindset. Because even though he's not owning his own business, he's on commission. So you almost, it's a different level, right? You don't get paid
Yeah.
unless you close the deal,
Yeah,
basically.
exactly. Same thing as real
So
estate.
same thing as real estate,
Just
exactly.
cheaper deals, so probably have to do more of
Yes,
those deals.
correct. Yes, exactly. So in that sense, yes, I think they are watching and learning as we go, and there may be a part of them that might think I'm a little crazy right now, but that's okay, because and my husband and I have had this discussion. I said, I feel like, when I had them, I was a young mom, and obviously trying to figure things out like most of us, and when your kids hit their 20s, you've learned a lot in those 20
Right.
years. And so I said, I'm afraid that I may have messed up our kids, because I passed on some of the things my parents had passed on to me, the mindset. I said, so they're going to probably have to work that out, because that's been deep deeply embedded in them because that's what I raised them with. But now I've really switched and gone from, no, take the risk, do it. Life is short. If you've got a passion in your life, go for it. It doesn't matter. Just do it. And so I told my husband, I said, I feel like we have a duty and an obligation now to really make sure we are successful for our children's sake, so that they can grow and heal and go beyond, what was set them. And then maybe we can break those generational ideas, or some may call them curses or whatever, but it's just, you know what I mean? The generational things that are passed on, and maybe we can break it because we're going to break it now. And then for our grandchildren, maybe they can start from the very get-go. Because I love seeing these little kids and they're entrepreneurs from the very get-go. Like that 8-year-old on YouTube that's making millions of dollars unpacking gifts. I mean, if he didn't have parents that were entrepreneurs, he would not have known to do that,
Yeah. I mean, I just hope, because it was interesting what you said about your son-in-law, about saying, like, it was hard enough to get to the 40 hours, let alone working beyond 40 hours. And, because I think the one thing on YouTube that's not really visible is how much work these people actually put into doing what they're doing.
Yes.
If you look at Mr. Beast, I mean, he spends all that time on his videos just, and he, now mind you, he's got a team now since he makes money on it. But, but just the creation of the video, I mean, you look at how in depth they are and then obviously the editors do whatever they're doing. But, it's not like they're just putting out a 15-minute video in 15 minutes and being like, okay, I made millions, so let me take a break for a week. And I think that's the one challenge I think that we live in today, is that it's not necessarily viewed as, hey, it's got to take some hard work to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And then maybe down the road, you can pull your hours back if that's where you want to get to. If you want to get to $1 million and you're fine there, and you want to pull hours back, that's up to you, at that point. But, I see that a little bit in my stepdaughter and her boyfriend. I mean, she's 18 and he's 22. So she's more entrepreneurial than he is. But I'm hoping she realizes the work that goes into it. That's my one, my one concern is that because when you hear her talk, she's always about, I don't want to be working past 45 kind of thing. And I'm like, okay. I mean, go for it if you don't want to work. I mean, and I know people that did retire at 45 that lived in a country club down here that I used to work for, and then they got bored, so they did something else, like they only play golf so many times a week, and go on so many trips, and you're like, okay, what do I do next here? So they either started another business or they did something else, and but that's for her, it's her journey. But I'm just hoping that she realizes kind of the work that has to go into it, so it's not just like, hey, let me do this, and then the rest of the time I'm going to coast over here.
And she will, because what I have learned is that our kids learn more from our example than from the words that we give them. And our son, for example, he decided that college wasn't for him. He took a semester of college. I don't remember if he did 1 course, 2 courses, but he didn't even do a full load. But he came back to me after that first semester and he said, I'm not enrolling again. And I said, what? He said, it's not for me. He said, why would I spend money on going to college and learning from professors? He goes, I want to own my own business. I want to have my own coffee shop one day, but why would I go learn from somebody who doesn't necessarily currently have a business, who has outdated information? I'm going to spend all this money. Because I'd rather go get a job and learn from the ones that are truly in the business right now, understanding the market as it is. And at first, I was really upset, Allison. I was thinking, are you kidding me? Your grandfather did not come to this country for you to not go to college. Are you serious? Because that was what was geared to me, is that you're going to go to college. We have the opportunity here to go to college because in Vietnam, people don't have that opportunity. You have to be very wealthy to do it. But here, people who are poor can go to college, And so it's like, why wouldn't you? And so I was like, and I just had to calm down, take it to the Lord, And over time realized he has to walk his journey.
Yeah.
And so Allison, within about a year and a half, no joke, he ends up landing a job as the store manager for a local coffee shop. So he is now the store manager for the last year, and his boss, the owner of the company, is also a business coach. So they meet each other once a week. He basically is coaching them. They read books. He has them reading books. They go over it. And to see the growth in him this last year and a half has been incredible. This last year, I should say. And so I told my husband, I said, I hate to say this, but I think our son was right. Not only did he manage to go get an education, but he's getting paid to get the education. He's not paying out. He's actually getting paid, and he's learning, and he's probably further ahead than some of the college students that are, getting their degrees. And so in that essence, he has definitely done well. And just recently he told us that he had employees that were having a hard time asking for tips. So this was about probably 4 months ago. And so the boss and him were having a discussion about how to increase tips. And so he had a lot of resistance from his staff, his employees in the beginning. They just didn't want to. They didn't think it was right, and they didn't want to do it. And so in his mind, he had to be creative. So he decided, you know what? Instead of trying to get all of them on board, I'm going to reach out to the top couple of employees that are influential with the rest of the staff. So if I could just talk those two into doing it, then the rest of them will follow. Well, now they are breaking records, Allison, like record numbers of tips. And so the boss, of course, is like, oh my gosh, you need to come talk to my other store and get them going. And I said, wow, that's awesome that you learned how to problem solve, and you did exactly that. That's exactly what a good manager does. You're not going to try to get the masses, but you just get a select few leaders. If you get them on board, then the rest will follow. I said, kudos to you.
Yeah. Sounds like your son's a lot like Sabrina's, because she's basically said the same thing with college, and she's like, why am I going to spend money? And then they're just training me to, think like the masses and like walk down that same path. And then I come out of school with a bunch of debt. And she's pretty much stated that same thing, which Jack, her father, is not taken as well. But I'm like, you didn't walk down that path, Jack. What, like, why are you wanting her to go down the path that you didn't walk down? Because he never fully, I think he got his associate's degree, but it was like many years later. It wasn't like right out of college or right out of high school. And I'm like, you didn't walk down that path. You walked a different path too. So, but I think, and I used to be that same as you, like that hardcore, because that's how the family I was raised in was like, you go to high school, you go to college, and then, you come out and you work for somebody. And that's exactly what happened. There wasn't ever a question whether I would go to college or not go to college. Like it was just, but I was also in a private school in high school, and, I think 99% of us, went to college kind of thing. So it was just like, that was the expectation, and I see a lot more, especially since I entered this entrepreneurial journey, that it's not necessary at this point.
No.
And I went back and got my MBA too, and I felt it was necessary at the time. This was in my 30s, and I felt it was necessary at the time because I was teaching tennis. That's one of the career, probably the longest career I had was for about 14 years. I taught tennis, and I at one club in Chicago, I ran the adult program there, and then at the club down here in Florida, I ran the junior program. So I did that, and I was like, okay, how do I transition from teaching tennis for this many years to not teaching, to get out of that? And I just couldn't, it was baffling my mind to figure out how to make that transition. I know people do it all the time, but it just wasn't my, you mentioned mindset earlier. It wasn't my mindset of how I could do it. So I ended up going back to school instead to do it. And then I went back into tennis after school. For another year and a half, and then I was like, okay, I'm done. That's it. So, but yeah, I think it's, you know, because of videos and YouTube and everything that's out there today that kids are exposed to, good and bad, you know, there's a different opportunities for education as long as they have at least the solid foundation with the family they grew up in.
Yeah.
Then, like your son, they can make those choices, and, you know, hopefully find their success that way. And like someone else I interviewed on my podcast, he's like, I came out, he's like, I never worked for anyone. Now, he was a salesperson, and he's like, I never worked for anyone, ever. And he's like, I was too much of a rebel to work for anyone. But he's like, but I figured, you know, I'm coming out of school, like, what difference does it make? I don't have anything at that point. I don't have a house. I don't have kids, family, wife, all that stuff. He's like, I could just, like, what am I going to, you know, what do I have to lose? So, which is kind of where I see with, you know, Sabrina. I'm like, what, she doesn't really, because she's making a change in her journey starting tomorrow. So, you know, I'm like, what does she have to lose? She knows you're always here for her. So if it, you know, if something happens, and she's got that plan. But if, you know, but let her do it. Let her explore, because she's always voiced, you know, being able to travel more. And I mean, she's always voiced that. So,
yeah. And that is, I think that is definitely the common theme that I hear from entrepreneurs is, what do I have to lose? Now, obviously, there are things to lose, but when you have a purpose and an assignment that you've been giving, you know, that you feel is deep, you do start to feel like, what do I have to lose? And because it's worth it, right?
Right.
Because even though you may not gain money, you still may impact the world. And for that, I mean, so your motivation, I think, has to be in, you know, you have to check your motivation, I think, first of all, because the most successful people, I believe, have, you know, a deeper desire, a deeper purpose. It's not about just making money. It truly is about making changes in the world. And so when they have that deep belief, they just go for it, regardless of whether the money comes or they lose it all. That's why they're willing to bet it all, you know, kind of thing. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's great that our younger generation is really, I guess, setting that, what do you call it? Breaking the ceiling. Is that what they call it? Breaking the glass ceiling of what? Yeah, of what you and I were brought up with, and what we thought this is the path to success. And they're like, no, this is not the path to success. This is what the path I want to take. And they are demonstrating that. I mean, we're seeing a lot of young entrepreneurs making a huge impact in the world, and very successful. You know, the ones that aren't just playing video games, right? But even those entrepreneurs that are playing video games are making money too. They've figured it out.
Yeah, I know. It's a little scary, but you know, but good for them.
Exactly, good for them. So as long as you know, I think our children are, you know, willing to work hard, and they have that perseverance and determination, they're going to be okay. And that's why I say your daughter, she's going to figure it out. She's going to be okay because she's got you and Jack as her example, and you guys are both hard workers. You know, you guys aren't sitting there twiddling your thumbs and just saying, we just rather watch TV than do that. Like, they watch you, they see you, they see your determination, your perseverance, and that goes a long way. So even though sometimes it looks like, oh my gosh, what are they doing? Because trust me, I you know, definitely was wondering, oh my gosh, did anything I teach stick, you know, kind of thing. But now, you know, now that they're kind of getting into he's 23, she's 24. So basically their adult brains are pretty much there. You know what I mean? They're pretty much developed. And so I'm like, oh, there's hope after all. Oh, yes. That hard work that Chris and I put in is paying off, because for a while there, you're like, oh my gosh, was it all for nothing? You know, did we not do anything right? But, and that's in business too. Going back to, you know, being a real estate agent, what it has taught me is that whatever efforts and work you put into it, you're going to get out of it. Now, it's not going to be immediate, because we're used to immediate gratification. So when you're in business, you're not necessarily getting a paycheck next month or the month after that or the month after that. Sometimes it could be several months before you start to see fruits of your labor.
Right.
But what I have definitely learned in real estate is that whatever efforts I choose to put in, it ends up paying out. So the more I decide to work, even on the off season, even when I'm not getting paid, if I'm willing to show up every day and doing the work that I know I need to do, whether there's a paycheck coming in or not, eventually it pays out. Now, sometimes it all comes in at once and you're like, how did I get some listings and,
Right.
or more, kind of thing all at once. But so expanding into, the other parts of entrepreneurial opportunities that we're looking at, I know that if we put the effort in, whatever we decide to put in, it's going to pay out, because that's just the way it works. And I think, and even with the little effort that I put in and it pays out, imagine what it's going to look like when I put in big efforts and more skilled efforts, not just throwing spaghetti at the wall or darts hoping that hit the target, but actually honing in the skills, what that's really going to look like. And so that's encouraging to me. And we live in a country that is, what do you have to lose? Because honestly, if you lose it all, you can still make it back up. I mean, I've heard of so many other entrepreneurs that were on the streets homeless for months.
Yeah.
Now they're extremely successful. So even, even at that, what do we have to lose? My children are grown. What do I have to lose?
Yeah.
I don't have babies anymore.
Exactly. And I think, the one thing I got out of all of what you just said was that piece of faith, so regardless of whether you're religious or not religious, but, if the faith of if as long as I stay true to my path, true to my vision, true to my journey, that it is going to work out. And it may not be how I want it to work out by putting in the effort today and getting the results tomorrow, but the consistency over time will produce the benefit at the end.
Yes, and then let me also add what I have learned in this last year. It is so important to have a coach or two or three or four, because prior to this last year, I did not pay for coaching. I was it was all about mindset. And I was like, I don't want to pay for that. That's money I don't have. And why would I pay for somebody to, show me what to do when I know what to do? But in my mind, I obviously needed help. So this last year, that's what I'm like, I'm going to pay for coaching. And once I did that and I saw the benefits of coaching, because coaching really is transforming. So Coach Michael Burt, I don't know if you've heard of him, but he believes that everybody needs a coach. And what he says is that speaking opens the mind, but coaching transforms lives. And there's so much truth to that. Because when you're working with someone who has walked through the fires and who has, basically made all the mistakes there is to make, and then basically gives you all information and holding your hand through and saying, just don't do, they help you navigate through the landmines, so to speak, so that you're taking years off of learning how to build that business. Like, you can accelerate much faster. So I just want to tell everybody, if it doesn't matter if you've been an entrepreneur for 0 months or if you've been an entrepreneur for 40, 50 years, I think I'm a believer now that everyone truly does need a coach in life, and not just in business, in your personal life, your spiritual life, all of it, your physical, because it will help you get to the next level and accelerate your business, your personal life. It'll take years off of making those mistakes. So. Yep.
No, absolutely. So as we start to wrap up today, I always ask my guests one question at the very end, and that is, if you were to give one tip to someone that wants to start a business or that's relatively new in business that you've learned over your journey that helped you accelerate your path, what would that be?
So the one thing, boy, and that's hard to just narrow down, exactly the one thing. I would say probably that thing probably would be, one, you really do have to have that faith. You have to not live in fear.
Yeah.
You have to believe when you have that passion that's burning inside of you, because you don't just step out into entrepreneurship usually because you just, like, people don't grow up, as a little kid and say, when I grow up, I want to be, an entrepreneur. They say, I want to be a policeman or doctor or lawyer.
Right.
Those are more the common thing. It, so when you have that, final, that there's something deeper that you need to go out and start on your own, because you're being innovative, you're being creative, you're stepping out, you're now creating something. You're not just stepping into a system that's already there.
Right.
Don't let fear hold you back. And just because you've not treaded on this territory doesn't mean you can't do it. And then, really truly believe in what that mission is and go for it, and don't listen to the voices. Sometimes people who are on the outside, they don't understand, so they'll tell you you're crazy. What are you doing? I think you're losing your mind. Why are you leaving a good job, risking everything when you can lose it all? But if it's in you, don't have that fear. Just go for it. Just like we were talking earlier, if our founding fathers didn't just go for it when they had that vision and that belief that there was something better across that ocean, where would we be today? And think of that. If you don't do it, who will? And who is going to lose out if you don't do it? Because that, to me, once I realized that, I was like, oh my gosh, I now have a duty and obligation to make sure I just go for it, regardless.
Yeah, exactly. And if anyone wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
So if you want to get in touch with me, certainly I am on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I also have a YouTube channel called American Dream Makers. But you can also go to ZenaKrogedal.com. So Zena at ZenaKrogedal.com is my email as well. And my phone number is pretty much listed. Being a real estate agent and being out there, you pretty much, if you type in my name, you should be able to find me pretty easily. But those are probably the best ways, and certainly you can get a hold of Allison and she can get you in contact with me. Love to have a chat with any of you if you like to. And I'd love to, just get to know your story as well. So it's the exchanging of ideas and stories, I think, are just very inspirational. So I just really love that, for sure. Yeah. Thank you again, Allison, for having me on. I really appreciate that you had me on here. I feel very honored, because you are a very successful woman. And so I'm really glad to have you in my circle of friends and mentors here.
Yeah, no, thank you for joining me. And I know it was fun to be on your podcast earlier, American Dream Makers. So thank you for joining me, and thank you everyone for joining the Dream Plan Start Grow show today. I do love working with new business owners, so if you have any questions about how to start a business or looking for kind of information, I do offer a complimentary consultation. You can go to my website, dreamplanstartgrow.com, and sign up for that. And otherwise, you can check out all my episodes of my podcast, as well as some other videos on my YouTube channel, Dream Plan Start Grow. Thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
Bye, guys.